The Rockport Incident, posted by Getty Asia. What's up guys, Sam here. If you're hearing this, I want to thank you for tuning in to my channel. As you all know, I narrate stories you guys submit. I just want to take a second to say, I love you guys, you're all awesome, talented people, and as a cliche as it may be to say, without you there is no me. Moving on, I recently decided to start out filming haunted locations and posting them as prompts for you guys to write about. The best story would be featured and the runners-up would go into a compilation story for later. After doing some research, I came up with the perfect place. For the last 64 years, the town of Rockport has been erased from history, and for good reason. Settlers first came to the area in 1860. Originally the town was named Crandall. Local legends say a group of strangers came to town one day, claiming the land belonged to them. Things quickly got violent. Somewhere along the line, all the town's children vanished. Believing the strangers were responsible, the townsfolk set out to track them down. There are no specifics on what actually occurred after that, but none of the townsfolk were ever seen again. Years later, the town was resettled and renamed Enoch City. Very little's known about the second set of inhabitants. No actual records from this time period exist. The only real information comes from the records of travellers who were never seen again after entering the region. The town itself grew over the years and was eventually renamed again after the Black Hawk War, now known as Rockport. The town struggled to maintain its population, and by the 1940s, Rockport had become Rockport, home to a meagre 27 residents. Eventually, developers took an interest in the area and began sending surveyors. None returned. Law enforcement was then sent in. Out of the 4 officers sent in to investigate, only 1 returned. Officer Robert Burke was found wandering the road leading into Rockport. He was severely injured and covered in blood. He passed 3 days later in a Utah hospital. Before his death, he was able to give a partial account of what took place that day. According to what little I could find, Burke claimed to have spent several days in Rockport. In reality, he and the other officers were in town a little under 2 hours before someone was sent in to check on them. He went on to state that the people there weren't human. They could change into things and look like anyone. The rest of his statement was described as horrified screaming, followed by a violent seizure. He was pronounced dead the next morning. After the Burke incident, more police were sent in and never returned. The town was unofficially off limits. No one was allowed in or out. Then in 1950, the entire valley was purposely flooded, killing all the residents of Rockport. The history itself was enough to get me excited about the whole thing. But when the town was recently uncovered due to a drought in the area, I knew this was fate. I spent the next few days planning every step. Originally I wanted to do it alone. I thought it would add an eerie vibe for the artists to work with. The problem was, when I broke the whole thing down, it was going to take way too long with just one person. This is where things get a little complicated. I don't have a lot of close personal friends I can drag into stuff like this, so I had to reach out to the one person I knew for sure would jump right in, Gary. Don't get me wrong, he's not a bad dude. As a matter of fact, we're pretty cool. The issue is, he's got his own channel that's co-hosted by his wife, Crystal. And I fucking hate might be a little strong. I don't hate her, I just don't want to be around her. She for sure wouldn't let a chance like this pass without getting their channel involved, which means she's going to try to take over the project. I'm not going to waste time with the play-by-play of the whole situation. In the end, it came down to me agreeing to her branching off filming segments for their show while Gary helped me out. 3 days later, at exactly 3 AM, we were standing on the road leading into Rockport. It was a lot bigger than I thought it would be. Some sections were mud-covered rubble, but most of the town was still standing. It was incredible. I couldn't wait to get started. Crystal and their cameraman went their way, while Gary and I split up to cover more ground. We had 2 hours to get as much footage as possible and get out before the parks and recreations people caught us. I started off slow, taking it all in, being sure to record every step of the way. The moment Gary and the others were out of sight, things got weird. At first it was little glitches with my camera and mic, nothing abnormal, just typical issues you'd have in a place like that. The further I went, I started noticing dry patches of dirt. It wasn't much, but it seemed odd considering everything was covered in mud. I'd made it to a set of buildings that looked like they could have been a storefront. Across the street were 2 buildings separated by a narrow alley. I slowly turned the camera to get a good shot of everything, and as I passed those buildings, could have sworn I saw someone standing in that alley. My instant reaction was to turn back to that spot, but there was no one there. Sort of laughing to myself, I decided to go inside the building closest to me. The moment I turned and stepped through that doorway, I felt sick to my stomach. My heart started racing and my knees buckled as the world around me swirled, causing me to stumble and nearly drop the camera. Catching my balance, I stood up straight and tried to shake it off. The instant I took a breath, the room exploded with light, so bright I had to close my eyes. The air around me was suddenly warm and dry. I could hear people talking and smell coffee mixed with cigarette smoke. As the light faded, allowing me to see, I found myself standing in an old-style cafe with the woman behind the counter staring at me over the rim of her glasses. "Look, honey, I can't have you standing there taking up space. Either buy something or hit the bricks," she blurted out while pointing to the exit. I was speechless. I couldn't wrap my mind around what was happening, and before I could utter a word, bells above the door behind me chimed as someone came in. "Sam? Damn it, boy. I've been looking everywhere for you. What are you doing here pestering Miss Tessa?" That voice instantly brought tears to my eyes. It was my mother. It wasn't possible. She'd been dead for years, but somehow there she was. My heart jumped up into my throat as I staggered back, bumping into the counter. All I could do was stand there with my mouth hanging open while tears rolled down my cheeks. Tilting her head to the side, her face softened as she uttered, "Are you alright?" Then reached out to touch me. I couldn't move. When her fingertips hit my shoulder, a chill shot through my body, and the world around me shifted back into reality. The sudden darkness of the room was too fast for my eyes to adjust. I couldn't see. As the moonlight slowly trickled in, I got myself together, but I couldn't shake the image of my mother out of my head. For the first few seconds, I would see her every time I blinked. As the image faded, I calmed down a little, but I was shook. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I needed to get out. Clicking the light for my camera on, I turned to leave and paused when I saw headlights outside the shop. My first thought was the parks and recreation people had caught us and we were about to get kicked out. Then I heard Crystal screaming and Gary yelling, "Get your hands off her!" Rushing outside, I see 3 men standing near a truck holding Crystal, Gary and their cameraman, Paul, at gunpoint. One of them spotted me right away and came over waving a pistol around. "Don't you move. Keep your hands where I can see them." Once he had a clean shot at me, he stopped. "Now, nice and slow, drop the camera." When I'd done as ordered, he had me lift my shirt, then slowly turn around to be sure I didn't have a weapon. Once he was certain I was unarmed, he walked me over to the others. 2 of them kept their guns on us, while the 3rd robbed us for everything we had. The entire time, all I could think about was my mother's face. I didn't even flinch when one of them pistol whipped Paul for mouthing off. I didn't snap out of it until they zip-tied our hands and ordered us to go into one of the buildings. My chest instantly felt tight. I broke out in a cold sweat and panicked, yelling, "No, fuck no, I'm not going in there." My little outburst got me cracked in the back of the head, so hard I blacked out. When I woke up, I'd been hogtied and gagged. From where I was laying, I could see Crystal squirming, trying to free herself. Looking around, I didn't see the others, but I couldn't worry about them. I needed to focus on getting loose. After rolling in the mud for a while, I wound up on my back. That turned out to be the best thing that could have happened. The mud made my hands and wrists slick enough to slip out of the zip ties. The second I sat up and reached for the gag, I was blinded by that light again. When I was finally able to open my eyes, I found myself standing in an alleyway facing a storefront, while someone standing in front of it was getting it on camera. I didn't realise who I was looking at till the light he was using scanned past the alleyway, then stopped and came back. I was looking at myself before I went into that first building. I couldn't process what I was seeing. In absolute shock, I watched the other version of myself step through the doorway. The instant his light went off, I was back in the mud. The muffled sound of Crystal's voice slowly came into focus. I couldn't understand what she was saying, but I'm pretty sure it was something along the lines of, "Snap out of it and untie me, you shithead." Anyway, once she was free, the first thing she did was blame me. She actually believed I'd set the whole thing up. I didn't bother responding to anything she was saying. Trying to stay calm, I walked away. As I made it to the doorway, she let out a gasp and went silent. Can't say I wasn't happy about it, but when I looked back, she was gone. Stepping back, easing my way to the door, I managed to mutter, "What the fuck?" Just before I tripped over something and tumbled backwards, landing flat on my ass. In the moment between tripping and hitting the ground, the world around me warped out of focus. When I hit the ground, the mud I was covered in exploded into a dust cloud that slowly drifted down around me. As the dust powdered the ground, it sent out a shockwave that rippled across the surface of everything in sight, turning night into day as it passed. Nothing about the buildings changed, but the streets were clean and dry. I couldn't focus. The sudden shift of reality threw my mind into overdrive. I panicked. Getting up off the ground, I didn't bother looking around. I sprinted straight for the road leading away from the town. I didn't make it. Halfway there, I ran into Paul. He was bleeding from a gash in his head, and his shirt was torn. When he saw me, he rushed over and stopped. "We have to find the others." He wheezed, trying to catch his breath. "There's someone here." His words trailed off as he went wide-eyed and stepped back, looking past me. Turning to see what he was looking at, I froze. There was a woman carrying a baby running towards us. She kept glancing back over her shoulder as she hustled by, disappearing around the corner onto the next street. I looked at Paul and he looked at the road out, then back at me. Without saying a word, we both made a break for it. Of course the cars were gone. The guys who'd robbed us took our keys. But at that point I really didn't give a shit. I was going to walk out of there if I had to. Anything was better than spending another second in that place. After walking for a few seconds, I realised Paul wasn't with me. He was standing at the edge of the road, staring at me. Still walking away, I yelled back, "What are you doing? Come on, man, we gotta go." He didn't respond. I wasn't about to stop walking. If he wanted to stay, that was on him. I was getting the hell out of there. I called out to him one last time before picking up my pace and jogging away. I kept going till I needed a break, then stopped to catch my breath. Paul was just a dark spot in the distance now, but I could have sworn I could see him waving at me. Shrugging it off, I glanced up at the sky. It was day, but there was no sun, just a dull light that seemed to halfway mute the colours of everything around me. Ignoring it, I gathered myself and got moving. I'd been jogging for maybe a minute or two before I saw someone on the opposite side of the road running towards me. It was me. My heart dropped when I locked eyes with myself. We both stopped, looking one another over, while simultaneously saying, No, this isn't real. You're not real. Stop that." We barked at one another before shutting up. Narrowing my eyes, focusing on my double, I stepped to my left, and without missing a beat, he stepped to his right. We mirrored each other's every move right up until I reached out to touch him. The moment my hand landed on his shoulder, he smirked, then punched me in the nose. Before I could react, he shoved me down and ran away screaming. Between the busted nose, the throbbing headache, and the absolute insanity of the situation, I had a moment. I laughed, I cried, I yelled at the sky, and when it was all over, I sat there in the middle of the road, feeling like I'd lost my mind. It took a while for me to pull it together. When I finally got up and started walking, the first thing I thought of was the Burke incident. He'd claimed he'd been in Rockport for days, and it had only been hours. Something about that stuck in my mind. It was all I could think about till I saw the town coming into view, with Paul still standing by the road waving at me. My immediate reaction was to turn around and run the other way, but the moment I tried, I was blinded in mid-stride by that mind-numbing white light. Unable to keep my balance, I stumbled and fell, landing in a cold, wet mud. The smell of it flooded in with the familiar sound of Crystal's voice. My vision cleared. I was laying face down while she stood there talking to me. "What the hell's wrong with you? Get up and help me find Gary. We have to get out of here," she grumbled, stepping over me, heading for the door. Still groggy, I got up off the ground and wiped the mud from my face. as she stopped to look at me. "Come on, let's go," she hissed, motioning for me to follow her. I stood there for a second, confused by her tone. A minute ago she was accusing me of setting up the robbery. Now here she was asking for my help. A part of me wanted to tell her to fuck off, but I wasn't completely sure any of that was real. I started to question everything. I couldn't be certain that anything that was happening was real. I had to be sure. I needed to know this wasn't just in my mind. I stepped over to where Crystal was standing and leaned in like I was trying to kiss her. She responded by throat punching me and stepping back with an angry expression on her face. "Are you out of your mind?" She stormed off, leaving me standing there. It felt real enough. Hurrying to catch up, I rushed out into the street and stopped when I saw Gary and Paul running towards us. That's when I saw who they were running from. A little girl in a white dress playfully skipped behind them, giggling like this was all a game. Her laughter filled the air. It got so loud I had to cover my ears and run. It should have been a straight path back to the road, but the town seemed to be growing around us. We were running through brand new streets lined with buildings and alleyways that weren't there before. It was disorientating. None of us knew which way to go, so we were running blind, constantly looking over our shoulders. As we passed through an intersection, I saw Crystal stumble a little and bump into Paul, which caused him to fall. But we couldn't stop. I glanced back in time to see the girl get to him. Without breaking stride, she stepped on his lower back. The wet crack of his spine snapping was nauseating. But that wasn't the worst part. The pressure of her stepping on him forced his guts out through his mouth. He looked like one of those frogs you find stuck to the street. It was fucked up and horrible, but she stopped chasing us after that. As a matter of fact, she gave up as soon as he went down. It didn't matter. We ran till we couldn't run anymore, then hid in an alleyway. I was exhausted. Gary was flipping out and Crystal was pacing back and forward, trying to make sense of it all. Turn his attention to me. Gary snapped, "What is this shit? Jesus Christ. Did you see what happened? His eyes popped out. His fucking eyes. I think I'm gonna be sick." He retched and covered his mouth, fighting the urge to vomit before shaking his head and getting quiet. I was speechless. All I could do was lean against the wall, sucking wind till I saw something moving near the end of the alley. "Hey guys, I think we should go." As the words left my mouth, a short dark figure stepped into the opening. It wasn't the girl. This one was slightly taller, and by the looks of it, a boy. Crystal stopped pacing and turned to see what I was talking about. "What do you want from us?" she screamed, taking a step in the kid's direction. Before Gary could rush over to stop her, the boy didn't respond. Instead, he brought a finger up to his lips and shushed her as more children joined him, blocking the opening. The other end of the alley was still open. I yelled to the two of them, "Come on, we gotta go." But they didn't seem to hear me. That's when I realised I couldn't hear them either. I could see their mouths moving, but there was no sound. Waving my hands, getting their attention, I pointed to the opposite end of the alley and ran. They followed. As we rushed out onto the next street, I could hear again from behind me. Gary yelled, "Left! Make a left!" Making the turn, I could see the end of the street and a way out. There was an opening between two buildings that would lead us to the hill that borders the town. If we could make it to the top, we would have to cut through the woods to get back to the highway, but it was worth the risk. Ahead of us, I could see more children gathering along the street. They were watching us. Some threw stones from the rooftops, while others ran alongside us, laughing. Trying not to focus on them, I pushed harder. This was it. We were getting out. The opening was just a few feet away when one of the rocks they were throwing hit me in the head, knocking me off balance. I didn't fall, but I was thrown off course and slammed into the corner of the building as Crystal raced by me. Gary grabbed the back of my shirt as he passed and pulled me into the opening, allowing me to get it together and keep going. We were halfway to the top when something grabbed Gary by the leg. He screamed, "Fuck!" as he face planted into the side of the hill, sending rocks and debris tumbling in my direction. I couldn't avoid it in time and got tripped up, but I managed to keep my balance long enough to see what grabbed him. At first glance, I thought it was some kind of creature. As I got closer, I saw it clearly. Roots were wrapping themselves around his legs. By the time I made it to him, they were pulling him into the ground. Hearing him yelp, Crystal turned back and managed to get hold of his arms. She was trying to pull him free. When I got close enough to help, the root was almost to his waist. It moved like a snake coiling around its prey. The second I reached out to touch it, the smaller extensions that were growing from its back lashed out, wrapping themselves around my arms. As thin as they were, it took real effort to pull myself free. They tore into my skin, leaving razor-like cuts along my forearms. The pain was unreal. It sent a chill through my bones, followed by a warm sensation that made my eyes water and my tongue go numb. I thought I'd black out, but Crystal's voice snapped me out of it. "Get over here and help me, goddammit. I'm losing my grip." Before I could get in place, Gary's bones started snapping. I literally saw and heard his pelvis collapse before he went limp. I couldn't tell if he was dead or passed out, but I knew we couldn't help him. I had to pull Crystal away as the roots dragged Gary's body into the ground. She screamed and fought against me till we both realised the children were standing at the bottom of the hill watching us. There had to be at least a dozen of them. They all stood perfectly still, smiling at us, till we reached the top of the hill. Then they all scattered. I don't think either of us said a word till we got to the woods. Once we were standing there, staring into the darkness ahead, I said the first thing to pop into my head: "This is a really bad idea." Crystal didn't respond. She just nodded her head and started walking. I had to stop her before she went too far. "I think we should mark a path in case we have to turn back." She gave me an agitated look, then huffed. "I don't give a shit what you do. I'm going to keep walking till I get to the highway. Then I never want to see your stupid fucking face again." When I didn't snap back at her, she turned and walked away. Instead of rushing to catch up to her, I snapped a low-hanging branch and left it pointing to the ground. Keeping my eyes on her, I stayed back and marked every 10th tree till we came to a clearing with an old hunting cabin sitting in the centre of it. The place looked like it was barely standing, but there were fresh deer hides hanging near a pile of firewood. Someone was living there. Now, I've seen a million horror movies and in every situation like this, it's never a good idea to go in the creepy cabin. When I told Crystal we should keep moving, she agreed. As we started to walk off, the front door creaked open and a woman stepped out. I didn't recognise her till I heard the sound of a baby crying coming from inside. It was the woman who'd ran past Paul and I in the street. She looked around for a moment, then waved us over and called out, "You have to get inside, they'll be here soon." As I turned to look at Crystal, something heavy landed at my feet. It was Gary's head. I don't know why, but my first reaction was to kick the damn thing away from me, which turned out to be a mistake. Heads are heavy. The punt sent it tumbling across the ground, coming to a stop in front of Crystal. She didn't even look at it. Her instant reaction was to kick it directly back to me, only now it was slightly airborne. The fucking thing smacked against my kneecap and nearly made my leg buckle. If I hadn't been in the process of trying to dodge it, that probably could have done some real damage. Wincing a little and regaining my balance, I noticed Crystal was smirking at me, with a blank look in her eyes. Something about that look reminded me of Paul standing on the side of the road. "Hurry, you need to get inside." The strange woman's voice took my attention away from Crystal. At that moment I could have sworn she sounded exactly like my mother, but as I focused on her, it changed. Hesitantly taking a step towards the cabin, I glanced back at Crystal in time to see one of those children running up behind her. I yelled, "Look out!" It was too late. The kid jumped on her back, causing her to scream and panic while trying to throw him off. I wish I could say I sprung into action, but the shock of the situation left me stumped, just long enough for another one to come scrambling out of the darkness. Snapping out of it, I rushed towards her. The boy on her back howled like a wild animal and dug his fingers into her face, trying to hang on as I grabbed him. Pulling him away took more effort than I expected, but I managed to toss him aside as the second one bit into my leg. "Fuck!" I screamed out of reflex, brought my fist down on top of her head. The solid thunk of my fist bouncing off her skull made the little wench release me. Without another word, I grabbed Crystal by the arm and ran straight for the cabin door, which was now closing as the old lady attempted to get back inside. "Wait!" Crystal screamed as we reached the porch. I guess the old lady felt sorry for us and held it open just long enough for us to tumble inside. The door slammed shut with a resounding bang that thundered through my brain, and the room around me shifted. Reality flickered and lagged, causing a rippling effect to cascade across the room. I tried to speak, but my words came out slow and distorted. "We need to get out," was all I managed to say before Crystal started screaming. Turning to face her made every muscle in my body burn. She was suspended, spread eagle in midair. The strange woman seemed to be moving with the shifts in reality, appearing in different locations around the room, finally coming to a stop in front of Crystal. "We've waited so long. New blood for the land has been delivered." The woman's words echoed and bounced around the room, multiplying, crashing into one another, becoming whispers, then roars, and finally silence. There was a long still moment. I don't know if there was actually nothing there, or if my mind just can't handle whatever it was. All I can recall is stillness. No up or down, no dark or light, just an overwhelming sense of time dripping away. Then without warning, I found myself staring into the strange woman's eyes. She had materialised directly in front of me. A wicked smile stretched across her face, revealing rows of shark-like teeth. as her skin withered and cracked and then started falling away. The face beneath her face was something out of a nightmare. She seemed to be made up of thousands of tiny people, all of them writhing in agony, causing her skin to take on that rippling I'd seen around me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear myself from her and gouge my eyes out to free myself of the horrific thing, but I couldn't. Her voice flooded my mind. "Bring us more." The words sent a chill up my spine, causing my stomach to turn. Before she spoke again, "Blood for the land." I don't know if I blinked or if her movements were that imperceivable, but in an instant she was standing in front of Crystal. Her agony had somehow become white noise playing out in the background, only to come screaming back in absolute clarity. That thing, that horrible fucking thing, opened its mouth impossibly wide, releasing a tongue made of human arms. I couldn't understand what I was seeing, but I couldn't look away. Each appendage tore a fistful of Crystal's flesh, before collapsing in on itself till there was nothing left, just a small pulsing sack suspended in midair. The room went silent for what felt like a long time, then a heartbeat. At first it was faint, barely noticeable. As it got louder, reality warped with each pump. The creature moved in an almost human fashion, stepping over the pulsing sack, absorbing it into itself. The body quivered and shifted, slowly morphing to a now fully pregnant woman. She turned and smiled at me while rubbing the bulge in her stomach, then whispered, "Bring us more." My vision flooded with white light and my body went numb as the words echoed through my brain. I felt myself falling in that brief moment before landing flat on my ass. Reality came crashing in. I was in the first storefront I'd gone into. I didn't hesitate to jump up, grab the camera and get out of there. I ran all the way back to the road we'd parked on. My car was there, but there was no sign of the others. I took a second to catch my breath and get my keys. As I did, flashing lights from a ranger's truck came speeding my way. I spent the weekend in jail for trespassing, but when I finally got home, I checked the footage. In total there was 45 minutes of film. Gary, Crystal and Paul aren't in it. The footage consists of me arriving in Rockport alone, then walking into the storefront and filming a wall till I fell, then got up and ran to the road. I tried reaching out to the others multiple times, hoping maybe none of it happened, but it's been months and no one has seen or heard from any of them. At this point I have no intention of ever going back to that town. I'm only doing this now because, well, a few days ago I received an invitation in the mail. It was to a birthday party in Rockport. If anything should happen to me, I want this to serve as my public notice. I'll do my best to update this if I can, but for now, this is Sam, signing off. And that's it for tonight, my little hellhounds. Thanks for listening. If you liked tonight's scary story, then don't forget to subscribe and click the like button and click the bell icon so you get notified every time I upload. If you have any scary stories, then submit them to Reddit r/homeofscares and follow me on Twitter at homeofscares. Now, good night, my little hellhounds.